Hey there, welcome to the channel. My name is James, and here at 20th and 21st Movies, we are about all things cinema. All right, I got another Criterion Collection Blu-ray review for you. In this case, it is for the 1968 film from Franco Zeffirelli, based upon the Shakespearean play Romeo and Juliet. This film stars Leonard Whiting as Romeo and Olivia Hussey as Juliet. This film is from 1968. And it is a fantastic film from Franco Zeffirelli. Comes in at spy number 1171 in the Criterion Collection. And this is my first time seeing this film. I've heard great things about it. I've heard that, hey, this is the best adaptation of a Shakespeare or of this particular Shakespearean play, Romeo and Juliet. And having seen it, I definitely can see why people feel that way. I'm not sure if I'm ready to make that judgment. I haven't seen all the adaptations, the film adaptations of Romeo and Juliet, but I can definitely say this is a very good one. This is a beautiful, beautiful film from Franco Zeffirelli, and this Criterion Collection, makeover or this 4K restoration, excuse me, really looks nice. So I'll talk about that in a second. But this is based on the classic tragical story from William Shakespeare, written in the late 1600s, I believe 1597. It's the tragical story of Romeo and Juliet, the tragic play that he wrote in the late 1500s, based upon two young teenage lovers who are each part of feuding families. So you have House Capulet, of which the lady Juliet is a part of. She is Juliet Capulet. And you have House Montague, of whom Romeo is part of, Romeo Montague. So these two families, the Capulets and the Montagues, are feuding. They do not like each other. They hate each other. They're basically in competition against each other, and they're in a feud. And, one day Romeo comes across Juliet. Of course, they're part of feuding families, and that forms the basis of this forbidden love story of all time, of the ages. And of course, I don't need to give a beat by beat of this story. Most of us know how this story plays out, but it is a beautiful adaptation of the play of these two doomed lovers, Romeo and Juliet. And I have to say, the cast for this film, I was really impressed. I was impressed with the fact that you had these two lead actors, both of which were teenagers at the time they were cast. So Leonard Whiting was I believe 16 when this film was shot, and Olivia Hussey was 15. So they were 16 and 15-year-old kids in this film. And I think they did a great job from an acting standpoint. And I think Franco Zeffirelli and his team did a really nice job with casting the other characters in this film, including John McInerney as Mercutio. You had Mila O'Shea play Friar Lawrence. You had Pat Haywood play the nurse, which I enjoyed her role. I enjoyed Robert Stevens as the prince. And Michael York played Tybalt in this film. And when I saw Tybalt and I saw his face, he looked really familiar to me. And I was like, who is that? And so I had to look it up, and I was like, oh, it's Michael York. I remember him from, roles that he played in future films, in films after this movie where he looked a little bit older, but you can definitely see that's Michael York, And then, of course, you had Lord Capulet played by Paul Hardwick, Lady Capulet played by Natasha Perry. Lord Montague was played by Antonio Pier Federici, and Esmeralda Ruspoli played Lady Montague. So these are the parents of these doomed lovers. They all did a fantastic job playing the roles of these feuding families and how they react to learning that their kids are, in a romantic entanglement with each other, and it's kind of forbidden, and they have other plans for their kids. So you just have all that conflict going on. And I believe that this film adaptation does a beautiful job of bringing that story to life and bringing the dynamics of that play to life. Now, one of the things you'll notice if you're very familiar with the details of the play, you'll notice that there are some differences between this film adaptation and the play. There are some things that are cut out or not included in this final film version, including Paris and another character, the character Rosaline and Paris. I believe there were some scenes with them that were shot for this film, but because of wanting to keep this film in a certain runtime, they cut out certain scenes. So there are some aspects of this story that are kind of trimmed down for film purposes, but it was all for the purpose of keeping the narrative tight to the romance between these two characters, keeping that, romance and that passion as the focal point of this story. And I think Zeffirelli did a really nice job, and this team really tightening the story up and presenting a very beautiful tale of these star-crossed lovers. And, of course, we know that, it's not going to end well, unfortunately, based on, what we know about the play. So it's a really beautiful film. It looks absolutely amazing. This film won 2 Academy Awards. It won for Best Cinematography based on Pasqualino de Santis' cinematography, so it won an Oscar for that, and an Oscar for costume design based on the work from Danilo Donati. So this film won 2 Academy Awards, and when you see this film, you'll know why. I mean, the cinematography and the camera work is absolutely beautiful for this film, and the costume design, just amazing. I mean, House Capulet, they had a certain look in terms of the way their costumes look and a certain color scheme. Same thing for House Montague. They had a different color scheme for their costumes. And, all the characters and their period clothing looked absolutely appropriate. And it looks beautiful on this disc. I mean, I was really blown away with the cinematography, with the costume design, with the set design and the art direction of this film. It looks just wonderful, and it's just a beautiful story. So I was really impressed with this film, and I'm looking forward to seeing it again and really just sort of absorbing it even further and processing it a little bit more, and even going back to reading the actual play from Shakespeare, as well, the tragical story of Romeo and Juliet. But I think this film adaptation is a beautiful adaptation. It definitely lived up to some of the hype that I had heard about this film before I had a chance to see it. And I couldn't be more pleased having seen it. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the picture quality in terms of this is a 4K digital restoration of the original camera negative, the original Eastman camera negative. It says here, it is presented in its original aspect ratio of 1.85 to 1. It's a new digital transfer created in 4K resolution from the 35 millimeter original Eastman color negative. So that's good to know. The 35 millimeter original separation masters were used to replace damaged sections. So I believe with that separation masters, it has to do with the fact that this was a Technicolor presentation. So I think that separation master is like the red, the green, and the blue. I think you had those 3 different strips with the Technicolor process. I'm not an expert on that, so put a comment in the comment section to correct me on some of that, or just to expand on that a little bit for all of our benefit. So the original monaural soundtrack was remastered from the 35 millimeter original soundtrack negative and a 35 millimeter magnetic track. So all that to say, how does this picture look on this Blu-ray disc of this 4K restoration? And in a word, it looks beautiful. This film looks beautifully organic. This film is from 1968, and this restoration really has the look of everything you would expect to see and would hope to see from a beautifully restored 55-year-old film based upon a 4K restoration put on a Blu-ray disc. I mean, it looks absolutely wonderful. There is a nice little layer of grain there. You're going to see that it does have a little bit of an element of softness to it, but there is a fair amount of detail in most of the scenes. So it's beautifully restored, beautifully cleaned up. I noticed that the colors in some of the scenes really, really came through beautifully. I mean, there's a lot of nice, lush greenery with like leaves and the plants and the flowers. And some of the scenes, they really, really pop beautifully. And it kind of makes me wonder that, wow, if they could have put this on a 4K disc with some HDR, I would imagine it would look even more, more striking in terms of the way the colors looked with the green on the leaves and the colors of the flowers. They didn't, blow me away in every scene, but there were certain scenes where those colors came through even, more. And so I really thought the presentation of this film was beautiful on this Blu-ray disc. I think they did a nice job with the detail. Again, it has it looks the way that you would expect a film of this vintage to look. So it's not going to look the way a film that was shot, recently is going to look. It's not going to look quite that tack sharp, but it is beautifully restored. It's cleaned up really nicely, and it has a very rich and organic look to it. And I just thought that it looked just wonderful on this Blu-ray disc. The sound also came across very nicely. So I was very pleased overall with the presentation of this film on Blu-ray in just a beautiful, beautiful 4K restoration. Now on the inside of the package, of course, this is the inside of the case here. I'll show you what it looks like without this insert, but that's the back, that's the outside. But you have a very nice looking insert here, which we always like to see. I prefer a stapled booklet, but hey, there's a very nice essay in here that you'll appreciate and some nice information on the film. But check out the interior of this case. Look at the interior of that case. Isn't that nice? Showing the leads and showing them kind of facing the other direction, which is, sort of it's sort of symbolic of this story, that these are doomed lovers. You would like to think of things ending happily ever after and two people being together forever. And well, in one sense they are, but not in the way that you would hope, so to speak. But just a beautiful film overall. On the inside here, you'll have an essay called Star-Crossed Spectacle. And this is an essay from Ramona Ragg, which is a wonderful essay. She talks about Franco Zeffirelli, his background. She talks about the making of this film and does a really, really good job. And I just mispronounced her name. It's Ramona Ray. Ramona Ray. So not Ramona Ragg, but Ramona Ray does a really nice job with this essay in here called Star-Crossed Spectacle, talking about the director's background and just the making of this film, and talks a good amount about this film and its connection to the original play from the Bard. So just a beautiful essay. The special features are a bit light. So the features on the disc are pretty light. You get really three main features. One feature, which is a excerpt of a documentary on Franco Zeffirelli. That's only a few minutes. So that's, nice to listen to. But then you get two interviews on here of these two leads, which I think are very nice interviews. One interview is a more recent interview from like 6 or 7 years ago, from 2016, where they are being interviewed. At that time, they were in their mid-60s and they part of a screening of the film. And so this was an interview of the two leads after the film was screened at some location. And then the other interview that's on here is really interesting to see because it is from 1967 or 68 at the time that they shot this film. So you get an interview with Leonard Whiting and Olivia Hussey in 2016, and another interview from them from 1967, 1968. So when they were really young when they shot it, and when they're much older, more contemporary. And it's just interesting to hear their perspectives on the making of this film and working with Franco Zeffirelli and just the beautiful aspects involved with making this amazing film. And so, yeah, I mean, this is overall a pretty nice release from Criterion. I will say, as far as the special features, it is very light. So you don't really get a lot of features on this disc, but the features that are on here are nice. It would have been nice to get a little bit more on the director, Franco Zeffirelli. Would have been nice to hear a little bit more of the Shakespearean aspect that are at play here, and just to get just a little bit more from a supplement standpoint. So, that's the only sort of downer on this release that I would mention. But overall, the picture quality and audio quality, very nice on this Blu-ray disc. Beautiful 4K restoration, looks great. So the presentation is very nice. And if you are a fan of this film, if you love this film, if you've watched it before and maybe you have a DVD of this film, this is definitely a worthy upgrade given this beautiful new Blu-ray of this film. So this is definitely recommended for people who are already fans of this film and people who like, film adaptations of Shakespeare plays. So if you fall in that category, this is definitely a strong recommendation. If you also fall in the category of someone who just wants to explore different types of film, I would recommend this also. But in any case, because of the special features being a little bit on the light side, I would recommend waiting for a 50% off sale, so you really get the most value for what you're purchasing. But overall, you're getting a very nice presentation, one of the best film adaptations of a Shakespeare play available on the home video market, and it comes recommended in, based upon that, definitely on a sale. Maybe a flash sale coming up or a future Barnes & Noble sale. But let me check my notes to see if I had anything else to bring to the fray here. Let's see. I believe they mentioned in one of the interviews that this is still the last Shakespearean film to be nominated for Best Picture. So the last film of a Shakespearean play to be nominated for Best Picture. I'm not sure if that's still the case, but we'll have to check on that. Again, the cinematography from Pasqualino de Santis was absolutely fantastic in this film. Nino Rota's score was also fantastic. So you had the score, the music, just absolutely amazing. So there's just so much that went into the filming of this movie. It was filmed on location in Italy, in Tuscania, Panada, and Artina. And it just a wonderful film. It looks beautiful, and it really puts you in that world that Romeo and Juliet occupied during this period of Italian history. So that's really what I wanted to say about this release from Criterion. I think it is a wonderful release overall. Of course, I will make a quick mention that there is some recent news on this particular film. Of course, many of you may have heard about a lawsuit filed by these leads, Leonard Whiting and Olivia Hussey, over a controversial scene that is in this movie. And so they filed a lawsuit against Paramount. So we'll see what comes from that. But in terms of this release from Criterion and this film, just wanted to share my thoughts on this particular film. And I think it's a beautiful film and a beautiful release from the Criterion Collection. But let me know in the comments section below, what do you think about Romeo and Juliet, the 1968 adaptation from Franco Zeffirelli, starring Leonard Whiting and Olivia Hussey? Let me know what you think in the comments section below, and let me know what other titles from Criterion are you excited about in this early part of the year and that you look forward to picking up here in the next few weeks. Let me know that in the comment section below. And as always, thanks for watching, and we'll look forward to seeing you next time at the movies. Peace. Peace.